This is my audience. Hi, I'm Annie Wooding, and I will be talking about Rosa Parks. At this point, most likely everyone knows about the mother of the civil rights, Miss Rosa Parks. Surprisingly enough, there are many myths and misconceptions about Rosa and the life she lived. I feel like history has downplayed her to just a random seamstress that did not feel like getting up. There's so much more to learn about the extraordinary woman that left such a mark on the world. Today I'll be telling the real story about Rosa Parks and her life of activism. One misconception about Rosa Parks was that she was very quiet and a non-confrontational woman. Rosa was instilled at a very young age by her mother and grandmother that she was deserving of respect and that she should never let anyone make her feel inferior because of her race or color. She credits them for her justice spirit. Her grandfather always had something to say about the injustice going on against them, and she became passionate about the topic from a very young age. She was a very headstrong young girl and often got in trouble for fighting back against any white kid that would pick on her. She lived in a time where any type of insurrection would get her seriously injured. Her mom often worried about her safety, but Rosa refused to be silenced. Many chose not to highlight that Rosa was a passionate freedom activist. After being a part of the NCAAP since the 1940s, which is the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, she was chosen to be the secretary of the Montgomery chapter. She was the advisor of the chapter's youth group. In the summer of 1955, she took part in a civil rights training work camp for a high school in Tennessee. Even her husband, Raymond Parks, was an impassioned activist that protested heavily against the executions of the Scottsboro Boys, which were 9 black boys falsely accused of raping 2 white women. She claimed she knew he was the one because of his spirit and her ability to talk to him about important topics. She even claimed that he was the first real activist she's ever met. Now let's talk about the famous story of Rosa Parks being arrested on the bus, the one that we all know. The watered down and twisted story most of us learned goes along the lines of this. December 1st, 1955, a random, tired old seamstress named Rosa Parks had just gotten off of work and got on the bus and sat in the whites-only section. When the bus driver told her to stand up, she replied, "No, I am very tired and my feet hurt." After continual refusal, the cops were called and she was arrested. Let's go over the misconceptions about what happened that day. First, Rosa Parks was not old. She was 42, which is not nearly old. Second, she did not sit in the whites-only section. She sat in the first row of the black-only section, but the bus filled up and she was told to get up and provide the seat for a white person. Third, she never said her feet hurt. She did not like this myth going around because it implied she needed an excuse to stay down other than just being tired of being constantly disrespected. She was not physically tired, but instead mentally tired of being trained as a second-class citizen. Also, this was not the first time she had gotten into trouble on the bus. She had previously been kicked off the bus for her refusal to move. Rosa Parks was not a random lady that just stumbled into history. She was a spirited woman that had enough and was going to fight for change. Rosa's place in the civil rights movement was one that will be in history for the rest of our lives. For a while, the NAACP had been looking for someone to represent the movement against bus segregation. They originally considered Claudette Colvin, who was a pregnant woman, 15 years old, that had been arrested early in March of 1955 for refusing to move when told on a public bus. They deemed that she was not a good fit to be the face of this movement, and so they decided not to be with her. After Rosa's arrest, they decided that she would be the best person to be the face of the movement. This boycott pushed famous pastor Martin Luther King, who we all know, to the forefront of the civil rights movement. Rosa Parks inspired Mr. King and many others to push back against the oppression. The news of her arrest spurred Montgomery's black residents to go on a bus boycott to protest the unfair laws and treatment. The boycott lasted 381 days, and the laws to enforce segregation on public buses were lifted. Rosa Parks is one of the most well-known women in the civil rights movement, but so many do not actually know anything about her and what she stood for. She was an outspoken and headstrong woman that was respectable while demanding that same respect from those around her. She was a lifelong activist but did not fear what could happen to her from living her life. She refused to believe she was a second-class citizen or be pushed around. She kick-started the Montgomery bus boycott, and without her, it might not have happened at all. She refused to give in. She never thought about the impact that decision would have, and she just knew she needed to stand up for herself. Rosa Parks was a brilliant woman that was so much more than just a tired woman that did not want to get up, that they often portray her as. Thank you.